Jerry Gidel is ready to talk about the market slide and the estimates for the USDA January report right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, before we jump into the USDA numbers that you have for January, that everybody is eager to see. We can talk about this market slide that we saw on Friday for both corn and soybeans. We started the week with positive numbers, green numbers, but everything went down the window on Friday.
Yes, it was quite the trapdoor opened and everything kind of slid pretty dramatic. Not surprising in these kind of thin holiday markets when you don't have I think that early in the week here the concerns in South America, thin trading, little desire to in the export world to go ahead and get some supplies if needed, and that but when we finally got the 1 day delayed export sales on Friday morning, they were below the trade estimates. I'm not sure why the trade estimates were as high as they were, considering that during the holiday period, even the export workers down there in New Orleans and other places have to take a vacation in there at least 1 day and sometimes more than that. And so we ended up had only 30 million corn and 17, well, nearly 18 million on soybean exports that ended uh, after the on the 26th of December from there. So that kind of got to go. And then I think we had a lot of stops in the market that people had put into thing, slid back down. I'm not sure that's specifically a huge signal of where we would be in 2025, but it definitely was a little bit of surprise coming in here. We did end up having some confusion too in the world uh, oil out of oil markets, and that U.S. still hasn't got its details together on how they're going to administer the new program they've come up with here in the U.S. And then over in Indonesia, a major producer of palm oil, and that they had indicated they were going to be moving up to a 40% usage factor of their palm oil in diesel. Well, at this point, they hadn't got that together, so that was another one that kind of caused confusion here in the commodity markets coming into 2025. But overall, the markets are still going to be very focused going forward here on the USDA's production, supply demand reports, and even the winter wheat seedings here in the U.S. on January 12th.
Yeah, so I was checking the numbers that you sent me that you might see on the screen, and that the ending stocks for corn you are increasing compared to the previous estimate, and for soybeans you are decreasing compared to the previous estimate.
On ending stocks, I am on both of them. From there, kind of an interesting twist on that. We'll kind of focus on the corn first. We had a pretty good adjustment upwards last month in both demand for exports by 150, and we also had a 50 million increase uh, in ethanol usage. And that we did, of course, in December, we don't get any adjustments in production. Now, going into this report, uh, I think it reflects back to what might have occurred back in our November numbers that didn't seem to be changed at that time. And that I think that the way the season kind of ran out, and that we did have some some problems in May getting some plantings in on corn. So I kind of feel like we may have lost about 300,000 there on harvested area and that. And then you put together, I think, a bushel and a half lower yield. Now I'm not sure that there's many people in the world that's in that with me on that one. I think there's some people looking for some small reductions, but I kind of feel like uh, I've been talking about this for quite some time, has been the implications of the dry seed moisture coming into these elevators. They measure everything based upon the weight that's in those kernels. Now, all of a sudden, normally it's 15 and a half is what they bring it down to. They have moisture coming in above that. But this year, we were having most of these moisture scenarios on corn going into the elevator's below 50 and a half. And so I think that factor is going to ultimately come along here, and we're going to have a bushel and a half down to a 181.6 versus 183.1. And I think that's really the interesting twist on corn. That turns around and actually takes the carryover stock down about 177 million or thereabouts, 78. And so uh, now even the interesting scenario on feed usage, I kind of feel like that even the feed yards maybe picked up a few more eight bushels of corn when prices were cheaper this fall, and that. But at the same time, I'm not sure they're going to change the feed number this time around. That'll probably be in the March number. But I don't see the USDA adjusting any of their exports. Of anything, they could even actually increase the demand on the export side of things here at this point. So, but 1.56 billion bushels is not a number that is extremely bullish by any means. It's just going the right direction, and I think that's I think it will give some enthusiasm to the country on the corn at this point. From the standpoint, they might anticipate to continue to be tough sellers out here. They basically, the world of feeding and exports uh, need a certain amount of supplies in the system, and at this point, the farmer out there and it's going to be probably a reluctant seller since it's significantly lower than you've seen in the last few years. Now, can't say that last fall with these prices, they were definitely way down below $4 out there, and they are above that now on the
Now,
corn.
do you still see a scenario where China would only buy from Brazil?
Yes, yeah, that's the other twisted here in dealing with the corn market right now. We have a combination of what the new administration's approach will be. Uh, in general, the Brazilians have been kind of the primary supplier. We've done some corn over the last, let's say 2 months in here as the Brazilian and South American supplies really have started to wane. And it'll be a while before they actually pick up again in the coming year. Traditionally, the Brazilians sell most of their second crop corn in the export market, which isn't really normally available until June, maybe late May, June type situation. So I think that there has been some recent purchases, but in general, the Chinese have had a solid crop this year, not a terrible crop last year, and right now, at least, they're not enthusiastic about being beat up by President Trump about export tariffs and things like that. So it's going to be a tough one. Right now, I think they'll ship what they purchased. I think we've got a lot on the books, and I kind of feel like that the export and demand levels that we've got are going to be pretty solid. Will they increase much? Domestically, maybe, but internationally, probably not much because from there, unless we have something dramatically change in South America, Argentina's got some shakiness down there on their output for the coming year because of dryness in parts of that country. And even southern Brazil and Rio Grande and Paraná have not been as impressive as what's gone up in Mato Grosso and Goiás in the north. So, and the corn market still has some uncertainties, but at this point, at least, some of the uncertainties are not all that positive when our incoming president wants to be very much of a saber rattle, a saber rattle or against China and that. And so it's going to be a tough kind of hoe here, maybe as we get into later in the season. But sometimes Trump has some interesting approaches on things. He rattles a lot and then does something else.
Yes, anything else would you like to add, Mr. Gidel?
Oh, of course, we've got the beans we've got to look at here for the U.S. DA's final crop numbers on January 10th. From there, and that's, I think, the interesting kind of one. We talked about the demand levels on corn not changing much from last month when they after last month's change. Well, back in November, when the USDA took 112 million out, which is 1.3, I think it was, in yield out of their total supply, they also reduced the exports and crush numbers and that. And so I think that's a twist on this thing. We have not slowed down from what we were before. I know that South America is ahead of us here on crop production and things like that. That's going to be a factor. Say the last third of the year here on export trade and things of that nature. But I'd have to say that there's still a strong possibility since I think we're, geez, over 100 million ahead on exports on actually more than that now. I think back in 1st of December, we were about 100 million ahead on the shipments. I kind of feel like that they're going to restore some of those reductions they made in both exports and crush. And then I think there's a possibility you might take 3/10 of a bushel out of the yield, and that. And interestingly enough, the average yield I'm anticipating here could be slightly less than the highs we had way back in 2017, 18, something like that. The highest bean number we've had in years was yield was way back then. From there, from that standpoint, yeah, I'm looking for a 51.4 crop and so on yield, I'm sorry, in the US. And that's kind of interesting, despite the fact that we had such optimisms coming in here. But this late, I'll say early to mid-August, on the all the way to October, really kind of shrunk up everything, both corn and beans, on moisture, and I think that's going to be a factor going forward on that. Now, same thing as we talked about in the corn. Taking off 80 million, taking 25 million in production and increase in exports and crush, still doesn't make the 390 million number, I say, wildly exciting, but it's going the right way. I kind of feel like this market, if we get things in my look on things, will kind of continue to be somewhat stale at this point. And stay in the ranges we've had at this point as we continue to watch South America and how their crops are coming along, what's going on in Argentina from there. So, that's one of the features out there. We still have to look at wheat. Wheat is still in the U.S., at least on supply and demand, it's probably not going to have a big change after last month's 25 million increase in exports. And traditionally, there's not a lot of changes in this production number that's put out back in late October or late September, and that. I don't think there's any real big changes. The big thing in the wheat market is how many acres are we going to plant in the winter crop situation, and that's another one that has people, I think, a little bit too uh, negative at this point on how much will be seeded for the 2025 year, which is already done here last fall. Uh, the twist of it is that yeah, we're going to see some reduction in winter wheat in the Southwest. We had a big jump last year in Kansas. They're going to switch back towards corn and soybeans a little bit. I don't. Both Texas and Oklahoma had big declines. I don't know they're going to have a big decline now so much, but I think that we're going to have 125, 150 million less winter wheat in the Southwest in the hard red variety. But surprise, surprise, sometimes in the soft red worlds, when all the prices are lower, the producers in Eastern Corn Belt and Southeast, and to some extent, they've really had a tough fall this year with a lot of hurricanes and issues like that that's knocked down their production. So they're looking for a crop that's going to give them some money. And I don't know they're going to fertilize it very much, or they're going to end up really taking care of it. They're just putting it out there for some income coming next spring, or actually early June, and that for harvest and that. So I'm kind of looking for the soft red to go up about 400,000 acres between the southeast and east coast or eastern corn belt, and then maybe 50 or 60 million up in winter wheat in the Pacific Northwest, which is white wheat. So I'm kind of looking for a little higher number, probably going to be the upside of numbers, but it's really not what the seedings is. This is what's the yield going to be next spring and summer, and that's really yet to be determined. That really doesn't start to really come into focus until we get into March, and seeing how the whole winters came about, and that on moisture and what the spring rains happen to do with it. But right now, at least, we're going to have a lot of numbers to swear at on next Friday, and so we'll try to sort them all out when we see them and see what the market wants to do. But I'm kind of feeling like we might be discontinued to muddle along here and continue to watch South America potentials more than the numbers turning in a real negative or a real positive outlook from the USDA's final numbers there on January 10th.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. Thank you very much, Jerry.
Yes, well, that's we're off to a kind of a rocky start here in 2025, but I kind of feel like that might be what we're going to be dealing with the new administration and weather around the world.